Anthony Edwards officially has the potential to join the MVP race and become the face of the entire NBA. I mean, just look at what he did a few days ago. 34 points leading Team USA, who is full of star players, to a comeback win against Germany. Making plays like this, Edwards has face of the NBA written all over him. And like it or not, it's clear that LeBron James, who has been the face of the league since joining, is going to retire soon. Either next season if Bronny James can't enter the NBA due to reported heart issues, or after LeBron plays with Bronny in 2025. This means that the face of the NBA title is vacant, but it's looking like Edwards could snatch it away from everyone and maybe even take an MVP caliber leap this season. But in order for any of this to happen, there will need to be one major change that the Timberwolves need to make. Obviously, NBA fans have been waiting for LeBron to pass the torch to someone for years now, but he just hasn't slowed down enough to lose the title as the face of the NBA. I mean, the man averaged 30 points per game last season, and he is showing no signs of slowing down. First, people thought that Giannis would take over, one of the most dominant players that we've seen in the past decade to take over the league. Then the buzz died down and people shifted to thinking it would be Luka Doncic, who took the league by storm just a few years ago. I might be saying this early, but although both of those guys are Hall of Famers, they've had their struggles. Luka with his conditioning and Giannis with his championship level success outside of 2021. Don't get me wrong here, Edwards hasn't really had any playoff success just yet, but what we just saw from him shows that he's capable of putting an elite team on his back and taking them all the way to the highest level of winning. Team USA, which notably consists of guys like Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Tyrese Halliburton, Brandon Ingram, and Jaren Jackson Jr., completed a 5-0 exhibition record with an insane 99-91 win over gold medal contender Germany. This team trailed by 16 points in the second half before buckling down defensively, holding Germany scoreless for 6 straight minutes during an 18-0 run. Anthony Edwards, to put it simply, was brilliant on both sides of the ball, locking in defensively and getting tough buckets and posters. As Coach Steve Kerr said, he's unquestionably the guy. You know it, you can see he knows it, but now the team knows it, and I think the fans see it too. Over these 5 exhibition games, Edwards has led Team USA in scoring, averaging 19.2 points per game, while shooting 51% overall. He's been given the green light to shoot at will and create when he wants to, and it's safe to say that it's been working for Team USA. His amazing play for Team USA, on top of the countless I'm him moments that he's had with the Timberwolves, show that Anthony Edwards can be the guy on a championship team. But there's one thing that could hold them back. After trading their entire future for Rudy Gobert, the Timberwolves have a poorly constructed roster at best. The Cat and Gobert pairing looks awkward, especially for Edwards' game that relies heavily on attacking the rim and getting to the basket. We've seen Rudy and Cat's presence prevent Ant from getting to his spots and attacking the rim at will, which ultimately holds back his game and lowers his ceiling. I mean, just look at this play right here. Edwards is running the half-court offense and there are no bigs down low, just Kyle Anderson. This allows him to put his head down, slice through the defense like this, and get to the rim at will. But let's look at another play. Here we have a playoff game against the Nuggets for elimination, and Edwards has the ball at the top of the key. He blows by Jokic and MPJ is on his backside, but Rudy Gobert comes in, which gives Ant less room to maneuver and forces him to kick it out. If you watched the Timberwolves at all last season, you would know that the Timberwolves' big duo of Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns restricts Edwards' game in a big way, and Edwards was even seen liking Instagram posts saying that Rudy Gobert was the worst trade of the past decade. So although there's no bad blood between these two, I think it's safe to say Ant knows the fit isn't good. But with that being said, what should the Timberwolves do to properly build around Anthony Edwards? Right now, this is a team that has over $500 million tied into their 3 big men of Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and Naz Reid. Gobert's value is obviously at an all-time low, and Naz Reid wouldn't get them enough value to move the needle regarding a championship run. So dealing Cat is really the only option that makes sense. But honestly, even if this team could trade Rudy right now for decent value, I'd still want them to trade Karl-Anthony Towns. Sure, Rudy has bricks for hands, but to put it bluntly, Karl-Anthony Towns hasn't been a winner, he won't be a winner, and he isn't a winner right now. We're talking about a guy that went on air for a podcast and said that his goal was to make it to the second round of the playoffs and get eliminated. Seriously, dude? This team is trying to win a championship and you're out here saying that a second round exit is an ideal scenario? Just insanity. We've honestly known this about Cat for a while though. I mean, remember when Jimmy Butler beat Karl-Anthony Towns with the G League players and called him soft? Looks like he was right. Not only that, but Cat has been pretty injury prone since entering the NBA, and if this team wants a championship, it's time to move on from Cat, plain and simple. But who should they target in return? This team obviously has a lob threat in Rudy Gobert, and centers were the problem in the first place, so they don't want another one in return. So what this team needs to do is trade for someone on the timeline of Ant that can also be a number 2 option on a contending team. Can they get that by just trading Cats? I don't know. But let's cover 2 of the best types of players that not only would elevate the Wolves team, but elevate Anthony Edwards' game so much that he could become the face of the NBA and an MVP caliber player. The best option for Edwards and the Wolves as a whole is a younger guard that can playmake, score in isolation, but still be able to play off the ball, since Edwards will have the ball in his hands quite a bit. So basically, someone who doesn't have to run the offense for the team to be good, but also someone who can score 20 points a night and help out Anthony Edwards on the offensive end. There honestly aren't a whole lot of players that fit this archetype that the Wolves could realistically trade for. But there is one player that comes to mind who's also on the timeline of Anthony Edwards: Darius Garland. Garland has become a must-watch player given his elite blend of playmaking and scoring. Drafted at pick number 5 in 2019, the Timberwolves were just one pick away from being able to get Garland, but instead they got stuck with Jarrett Culver. And to be honest, I don't even know where this guy is anymore. But why not bring Garland to his rightful home this year? Darius has proven to be able to play off the ball in this past year after being paired with star shooting guard Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell and Edwards have a relatively similar game, so these two would likely be a seamless fit on the court. Garland is one of the best shooters at his position and shot 44% on catch and shoot threes last season, and Edwards has shown the ability to spot up as well, shooting 41.7% on catch and shoot threes last year. Having 2 guards that could create their own shot in isolation and playmake for the team will be a challenge for any coach to game plan for. Obviously, the Cavs wouldn't want Karl-Anthony Towns given that they already have Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, but there have been some rumblings that this team would be willing to trade both of those guys if Joel Embiid demands a trade and makes himself available on the market. So could we see the Timberwolves get involved in a 3-team trade to send Cat to another team besides the Cavs while still landing Darius Garland? Maybe. But there is another type of player that would fit very well alongside Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves roster as a whole. A secondary scoring option wing that is a 3-level scorer and a playmaker. Basically, someone that can get a bucket anywhere if needed, but also playmake and stretch the floor for this team. For someone like this, there are actually a lot of guys on the market that the Wolves could target, but Brandon Ingram might be the best fit out of them all. Ingram is one of the most versatile and underrated scorers in the entire NBA, and despite being a true 3-level scorer, which is pretty uncommon in today's league, Ingram's main weakness throughout his career has been the ability to stay healthy. Despite struggling at times to stay on the court, Ingram has been the best player on a competitive Pelicans team that's been without Zion Williamson basically since he's been drafted, aside from 1 season. Ingram has had a ton of experience as a secondary scoring option, which has me believing that he would be an excellent pairing alongside Anthony Edwards. Ingram has also improved tremendously as a playmaker, and if Ant is able to keep improving in this area, they could harness an elite 2-man game. If the Wolves could deal Cat for someone like Ingram and maybe a young player like Herb Jones, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA, I honestly wouldn't hate this deal, and it would put the Wolves in a solid position moving forward. And even if they don't make this trade, people forget that this team has Jaden McDaniels, who in my eyes has one of the higher ceilings out of any wing in the NBA, and rumor has it he's standing at 6'11" right now, which only makes his value skyrocket for the Timberwolves. But even with the ideal teammates, becoming the face of the NBA is incredibly difficult. However, Edwards has the perfect style of play to capture fans' imagination. Stars like Jokic and Giannis are great, but they honestly lack the sheer entertainment and wow factor that Anthony Edwards has every single night. His athleticism and explosiveness draws natural comparisons to Michael Jordan, and fans are always gravitated towards high-flying wings that can jump out of the gym and hit impossible shots. Edwards is honestly the closest thing we've seen to a vintage showman-like MJ player in a long time. And beyond the highlight reel plays and constant athleticism, Edwards is one of the most likable players in the entire NBA as well. If the Timberwolves can find Edwards an ideal co-star and he continues to develop as a player, we might be witnessing the rise of a generational box office talent. It's far from guaranteed, but almost all of the pieces are in place for Ant to be the face of the NBA as they enter their new era without LeBron. Ant isn't the only young star on the rise though, because Jonathan Kuminga, who is one of the only young players left on the Warriors, could make an all-star leap sooner rather than later. Click here to watch that and see why the Warriors' young two-way wing has the potential to become a star player.